Let's see here. Something popped up with Facebook.
Says we're live.
Says we're live, then we're live, man. All right. I got all kinds of weird things happening here on StreamYard lately with Facebook stuff. Facebook's acting goofy, so I might have to look into something else, but I have a feeling Facebook's acting goofy to everybody, not just StreamYard. So Tuesday, 2:30 Eastern time, higher lead chill. Sean Day here. Not much to report on the labor market. It tightened up a little bit. It seems like it's starting to loosen up just a smidge, but over the summer, man, it was pretty tight. We had a lot of things going on to create that tight labor market. One is we're at 4% unemployment. We've been lingering around there for quite a while. And then also, I think it was the month of June or July, one of the two, we had like a 1.3% increase in wages for blue collar. That has not, I mean, so what does that mean? It doesn't sound maybe to some like a big number if you don't follow it, but I follow that stuff because that's my gig. I'm a labor guy. I'm hyper focused on the employee end of the world. And 1.3%, I can tell you, is significant in a month over month. Year over year, not so significant, but month over month. We haven't had that happen in like 60 years. That's when like dudes are on the moon type of thing for the first time. All right. So that's how long ago it's been since that's happened. And I dug into that quite a bit with a lot of things I'm reading up on and I have access to and people smarter than me I talk to. And so that kind of really dampened the fluidity of the labor market. So not as many people were looking for a job because the boss man was saying, wait a minute, where are you going? I'm going to give you a raise. So a lot of that otherwise would have been people looking for a job, not happy where they were. And also manufacturing is coming back to the United States. I don't want to get into a big political thing with it. But there's already companies, we all know the warehouse stuff that's going up everywhere still with Amazon. Somewhere in New England, I want to say Connecticut, something like that, they're building a new warehouse there that's going to hire 1,000 people just to work there, okay? So what does that do to your small business in that area, let alone who's going to build that building? Amazon does everything. They don't build their own buildings, though. They do a lot of things, but that's not one of them. So they're going to hire a lot of people from our labor pool that do construction, man, and are going to go out there. So that tightened up. And then you've got monsters like GE. They're doing more manufacturing. So all that stuff combined, the wages and all that, tighten it up. And I'm starting to see it loosen up a little bit. I just got a great email last week from a new Christmas light client that waited. Now they need like 7 people right away, and that type of thing. And we're getting a lot of that right now. We were able to get 5-6 people to an interview. They hired somebody that they called a rock star, and they're thinking about hiring the other 3 that were only solid. So solid's not bad, but and that all happened in about a week's time. I can't say we do that for everybody, but we're not too shabby. But I don't want to talk too much about me and higher lead show. I want to bring in my good friend Jason Geiman. Jason, how you doing, brother?
I am doing awesome. It is awesome to see you, Sean. It's actually been a couple while since I've seen you. I don't even know when the last time was. It might have been Phoenix a while ago. So
it's been way too long. And I think the Christmas lights, and I go, wait a minute, I reached out to you, said it's about that time of year, buddy. We got to do something and get together. I've had a lot of goofy things going on with my family health issues and some things like that have kind of kept me on the sideline with some things. I just started traveling again over the last month or two. So I've definitely followed you on your Monday night stuff. And just, we were talking just for a couple minutes before we hopped on live about kind of take us back because we didn't have enough time, you and I, to talk about it. Take me back to kind of your roots with the pressure washing king. And when I first met you and found out who you were, probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something by now, you just blew me away with the number of people that you were able to follow your information and your personality and just your honesty and your integrity, man.
So, yeah, I've been in the business since 2012, 13 when I actually started my own pressure washing business. And I did Christmas lights from 2014. And then I actually grew that business and was doing over $1 million. And we sold it in 2018. And so since 2019, 2018, I've been teaching people how to grow. And the way that I've done it mostly is through YouTube. Was originally how I did a lot of what I've done. But then here recently, I've been kind of pushing Facebook also. So right now, I have the largest Christmas light install group in the world right now. So that's a pretty cool thing to be able to say at the end of the day of by me giving value and me helping people start and grow their business, that in the end is what really excites me the most. And, I have this large group and some people think that they call me all kinds of different names because I don't let people spam the group a lot. But it is something that I want value, right? If you're not going to give value and you're just going to spam, it's not going to help anybody out. And that's why I kick those people out. And so people don't like that sometimes. But my goal is how do I give more value so that you can grow your business? I've helped thousands of people grow businesses across the country from starting out from zero and getting up to $1 million a year. And that's the thing that excites me the most is to see people that was a garbage man, right? He was on the garbage truck and literally doing that for 16 years. And he started his pressure washing business and came to one of my Christmas light classes. And the thing 4 or 5 years later, he hits $1 million in his business. And so it's really neat to see and help people grow. And that's kind of what I love. And over the time, that's the thing that makes me the most excited at the end of the day.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I know personally, probably over a dozen, at least over a dozen of your tribe that have gone from like obsolete to what am I doing to is she going to get the divorce papers ready to all of a sudden 4 years later, sometimes 2 years later, I've seen, and I know, you're getting up 3/4 and then $1 million. So I know people personally that Jason's out, man, and you are the real deal. What's the name of the Facebook group again, just so we get that out there?
It's Christmas light install, and I think it's training and group. If you go to christmaslights.io/group is the easiest way that will get you there.
Okay.
It's Christmas lights install training and community is what it's called.
Okay. I'm going to give I think this is your website here. I pulled up christmaslights.io.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be able to find anything and everything up there with Facebook groups and YouTube channels and things like that. So you guys, you have that at the bottom of the screen. So let's talk about, there's two things that when I think, there's a lot of things when I think about Jason Geiman, but there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is your big smile, your personality. I mean, there's that smile, dude. And I know I'm not trying to embarrass you, but you got the smile of freaking all smiles. I mean, there's just this big glow, big smile. It's obvious you love what you do. That's number one. The other thing that comes to mind is mindset and marketing. Those are two things that I hear come out of your mouth almost as much as anything. Why is that? Am I right? And why is that?
So mindset is 100% is what's going to make or break you in your business, or even in life, and the more I learn about mindset, the more it excites me that it's what gets you up in the morning. And, if you have a positive mindset, and it probably helps me with my smile of me having a positive mindset versus the negative, always being negative. And honestly, positive mindset is what sets you apart. If you can find the good in anything that you do, even when it is the crappiest day of your life, you will succeed so much better. You'll have so much more success than if you sit there and pout and worry about everything that you can't change. And, you're worried about who's in the government that, again, you can't change that. You got one day a year that you can change that, and that's November vote day. And even then, you're just one vote out of 100 million votes that you can change that. And so why are you so fixated on things that you can't change versus why are you not feeding your mind with positive outcomes and positivity and how you change your mindset? Your mindset is key of growing any business. If you have a bad mindset, this will even help you with your employees or make your employee. If you keep saying the words that you come out of your mouth, there's no good employees out there. You know, everybody sucks. Well, guess what? Maybe you should fire yourself, because at the end of the day, the common denominator is probably not everybody else. It's probably you as the business owner. And so when you start thinking differently, and how can I help this employee be better? How can I make this employee be a rock star? Yes, he's good, but how can I make him be a rock star? And that comes back to, are you a good boss? Do you have systems? Do you have the systems in play that they know how to do it? Do you have systems in play how to get them trained, how to keep telling them what they need to do? And do you follow the systems? Because if you have systems and you don't follow those systems, then in the end, it doesn't do no good at all. So back to mindset, mindset is key in growing any business out there. You know, I hear it all the time. Well, Jason, you just can't, you know, I'm the person that tells people to charge $8 to $12 a foot in Christmas lights. Most everybody else is $6. Well, right. They sell product. So guess what? If they sell it at $6, they're going to sell a lot more product. Yes, I'm not going to sell as much product, but here's the thing. My people that are going to be way more successful are going to be 10 times more successful than the guy telling them to do it at 6 so they can sell more product or more pressure washing equipment or whatever it might be, because they're going to do it that way. And that's one thing that I have not budged is, in fact, I keep telling my people to raise their prices, because in the last 3 years, 2 years, we all know how much everything has went up, but the cost of Christmas lights have went up, but people are still charging what they charged in 2018 when I sold my business. I was at $7, $8 a foot in 2018, and there's people at $6. Well, Jason, you just don't understand that you can't get that in my area. You're right, 100%, because Henry Ford said this 100 years ago. If you believe that it's right or right or wrong, you're right. Because that's right. What you believe.
I love that. I love that. Yep, that's Henry Ford. It's I have a buddy that is real good guy, down to earth guy, but he happens to be a scientist at the Cleveland Clinic. And him and I were talking one time and in regards to mindset, and he was involved with a study with more affluent CEOs and things like that in the white collar world. Athletes, professional athletes, collegiate athletes, and so on, kind of peak performer type of people. And he said that in a nutshell, so that I could understand it, so that anybody could understand it if I could, he said it something like this: Sean, positive attitude will take you one step closer to what you're going after, which is fine. It'll take you 2 feet. Your negativity will take you a mile backwards. He goes, that's how important positive attitude is. It takes you 2 feet, but that negativity will take you a mile backwards. He goes, there's a lot to be said about those professional people and athletes that seem to have that, I'm going to win this golf tournament or basketball or make whatever it is. He said, but it's those people that are unique, that are able to go and understand that you're only going to get a foot or two, and that's okay. But I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get that foot or two. They're not in a hurry to be the best. They're not in a hurry to be $5 million company necessarily. It's there. It might be a goal, but there's something to say about negativity that is so much more powerful than positivity.
Yeah, and if you get around negative people, you become the 5 people you're around. And so that's the importance of getting around positive people, and some of your closest family and friends are not the people you need to be around, because one, they don't understand what you're going through when you're an entrepreneur. And 2, they might, they're the 9 to 5 job that they think that's secure at the end of the day. And, they're thinking that you're crazy, but at the end, it's about the mindset that you have is what's going to make or break you at the end of the day. For sure. I love it. Why do you think so many, we've heard the word mindset, Jason, for probably for a lot of years now. What is it? Because I hear it all the time. I use the word perception a little bit and ego and some things like that. But man, there's no doubt in my mind you're right. When people need to look in the mirror, I'm convinced of that for sure.
I hear it every day. To your point, with nobody wants to work anymore, and when I do a presentation or when I talk somewhere, the first 10 minutes of my presentation about recruiting is about mindset, perception. And I put up on there, hey, everybody, tell me like the top 3 things you got, and it's like, the generation doesn't want to work anymore. And then I'll bring up, like, on the other side, this one quote by this fella people might have heard of called Socrates, and it's something like, they're tyrannical, they're negative, they're lazy, and worst of all, they don't work hard. And he's talking about the youth. And that was 300 BC. So, that's been around a while, guys. Yet I'm able to place thousands and thousands of people around the country. There's something, I think some of it might be your upbringing and things like that, but I know people from different upbringings, different environments, really hard economic times, or even really nasty things that have happened in your life, that somehow or another figure out how to get that mindset, and they're just like gung-ho plow horsing through anything to make it happen.
Yeah, I think the one thing, because I've actually talked to this about my wife a lot of times, I'm like, I always say, why wasn't we taught that in school, right? And because in school, you're taught to be in this box, and you do not get out of this box. We're teaching you how to go to work, and when we were growing up, it was go to work and get a good job and retire, get a good retirement. That was kind of what you were taught, and it was so that it was taught from school age on. And, we wasn't taught the books from, Napoleon Hill of the early 1900s of Think and Grow Rich, right? You can think it, you can believe it, you can see it, and you can achieve it. We were never taught that as we were growing up. And we were taught that and we also know, right, that most females are all about safety and, security. And so they like the job that you can go to work 9 to 5 and you're going to retire from it and blah, blah, blah. But even that job isn't secure anymore. Like, I had a guy that's an engineer that worked there for 20 years, and a couple of weeks ago, they're like, bye-bye, and he's like, well, what do you mean? I've been here 20 years. And they're like, we no longer need your services. And so it's important to understand that you wasn't brought up that way, and you wasn't taught that way. Like, I was not taught that way at all. I didn't start learning this until probably once I sold the business is when I really started to read books and understand a lot of this stuff that makes a lot more sense now, that you get around people that are successful. And that's the other key, right? A lot of people don't want to ever pay to go to trainings or don't want to do anything, but that's where you get to network and get to meet people like Sean and get to meet other people that are successful. So then that way you understand and you get into the like-mindedness of each other, and you can start throwing off ideas to each other, and you're thinking a lot alike. And that's the exciting part about growing a business and being an entrepreneur and being able to do this without having to worry about what some negative Nelly is going to say. Well, you can't do that. There's no way. There's no way that a garbage man can go from throwing garbage on the back of a truck to a $1 million business. No way. Having 4 trucks and a nice building and all of these things, but there is a way, right? And how did he do it? He got it by coaching. He went to training. He had to reset his mind, what he has been taught. He don't ever speak anything negative out of his mouth. Why is that? Because anything that's negative, even toward somebody, your brain doesn't know that that's toward them. So if you say that dude's stupid, your brain thinks that you're stupid because it doesn't know it going to a different person. And so the words you speak are so important. And I would say it's more important than anything else, because the words you speak, if you wake up and say, man, I'm tired, you're going to be tired all day. Right? And so if you wake up and this is going to be an amazing day, and you start talking life into it. And instead of saying, I've always done that, how about in the past, I've always done that, but in the future, I'm going to start working on it this way. Because we're changing the way we think and the way we believe. And when we do that, things change dramatically, and it's amazing. You know, even in the book of another old book that's a great book is what is it? Not big. Was in the 1950s, and basically he says, you know, if you wake up and you say, "Man, I'm sick. I have all of these things," you know, you're probably not going to live very long because
Right.
you're so negative on all of these things going on with you versus spinning it to a positive and making it somehow positive one way or another.
Yeah, I love all that. Yes, the tongue can get us into a lot of trouble, man. When we speak, it's an important thing to understand words and what you say. And you know, I'm not talking about being well spoken. I'm talking, which is nice if you can, you know, if that's your thing and you want to do that, but just kindness and understanding and really watch what you say to other people and your actions and that sort of thing. And I agree wholeheartedly on the mindset and the positivity. There was a time where, you know, I would wake up every morning negative. I mean, every morning I was like, here we go again, or blah blah blah. And that, thank God that I don't do that anymore. It hasn't been like that. I literally wake up and I have a routine and I have these things that I do. And I wake up knowing that I have my routine. I don't have time to sit there and it's immediately connected with God. I've got to connect. This is just me now. I wake up and I immediately have to connect to God, or my brain's going to be off to the races on what's going to go wrong and the landmines and the worry and the nonsense. So I have to connect to something, connect to a higher power, God, whatever you guys out there want to call it. For me, it's God. And I take a lot of time to make that connection, not just check it off that I've said a prayer and I'm good. All right, off to the races. But I have to make this connection with the universe and my higher power, my God. I'm a Christian, and that's what I need to do to get going and forward. But to something you said, it doesn't happen overnight. If you're one of those guys out there that is like that has a negativity problem, that has been like that for probably most of your life, right? Or maybe something tragic happened and now you're like that. Just like lifting weights, just like going to the gym, just like, you know, training for a mini marathon or whatever it is, over time, tiny habits, doing it over and over again, really identifying with people that are like-minded or how you want to be, right? And Jason hit it. I think there's a big thing with trainings and conventions. And for me, I find the smaller the group, these conventions with 10,000 people, I don't get nearly as much out when I get that intimate 20, 30, 40 size, because it's real intimate and I can identify with everybody in the room. And then there's a handful. I'm like, holy crap, you stared at the ceiling too and couldn't sleep at night for whatever reason. And that's the real magic when it starts happening. I love that stuff.
You know, I actually had a training a couple of weeks ago, and I had Paul Gardner speak, and one of the guys was like, "Did you know I was going to be here? Because you were like speaking right to me." And he's like, "I don't know anybody in this room other than Jason." So
no, that's right. But he knows what he's talking about. He's been there and he's done it.
Exactly.
Let's get into some marketing stuff. I want to, because that's sort of like, you know, we get that mindset right. There's certain actions you have to take, or mindset's just thrown out the window. You can be as positive if you want, but if you're just being positive all day and talking all day and not really marketing and putting things together and systems and processes, that mindset kind of goes to waste a little bit. But what about let's talk a little bit about where we're at today with marketing. And I don't know if digital marketing is as powerful as it used to be, or, you know, I think not, you know, certainly the boots on the ground stuff with putting in yard signs at one time. What is sort of like working now, or is it still the same old thing, or what's happening out there? What's different?
I mean, it is still a lot of the same stuff. Obviously, yard signs still work great. They're, you know, if you're in Texas, they just put a new law in that might make yard signs a little bit tougher. So yard signs still work amazing. Again, it's keep it simple. Don't get crazy and put all your other crap on there that you don't know. You don't need one service, one big phone number, and leave it at that. You don't need this big logo. You don't need all of this other stuff. So it still works really well. You know, AI is starting to move a little bit, so that's changing the market and how things are going to start looking. And probably not going to mess with Google much this year, but I would say next year Google's probably going to look a lot different. If you don't believe me, you already got the button. You can go to AI mode, and so once that button's up there, they're going to start moving it to where you won't be able to see it the old way. So they're doing a lot of testing with it. So you still have that. With the Christmas sites, Facebook still does well. Facebook ads do well still. There's a lot of people in that Facebook ad market right now. So that's going to see how things are working. Think people are closing jobs though right now. So that's a pretty cool thing this year versus last year. Last year, it was kind of slow all the way up to about November 4th. Last year was when it really started picking up for a lot of people. But this year, I know people are closing $5,000 and $10,000 jobs as we speak, and these are residential jobs. These aren't even commercial jobs. So, it is definitely getting that part of it. Google, your reviews are still huge. People, you got to get your reviews. It's important. It's back to training. It's back to systems. It's back to having your employees ask for these reviews. It's about you asking for the reviews. Reviews are still gold. That's something that sets you apart of having reviews and pictures. And, pictures is one that's a big thing of, do you have pictures of you and your customers and you and your employees? Because what do they look like when they show up? Do you look like drunk when you show up, or do you have professionally dressed and you look good and you have your Santa hats on and you're making, because in the end, Christmas lights, you're not selling bulbs at the end of the day. We're selling magic at the end of the day, and we're selling an emotion at the end of the day. If you're selling bulbs, you're selling them at $4, $5, $6 a foot. But when you start selling emotions, and what's your grandkid gonna think when he comes over here? And that's a price that you can't put on that. And so these are all things that work when we're talking about marketing. And it's like anything. You can't go get people to do the work if you don't do the marketing to get people to close jobs. And so you can't hire more people if you don't have the people there to hire for them. And so it's important that marketing is key. I see a lot of people, they want to go spend money on this and spend money on that, buy these bulbs, buy this new tool because it's amazing. But then when you ask them how much they want to spend on marketing, they're like, what's that basically? And that's your lifeblood of your business. It's your investment into your business is, if you put in $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, you'll pull out $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 out of it. And so you have to invest. It's no different than investing in employees, right? You have to invest in employees the same way that you're investing into your business, because your employees are your internal customers. And if you don't take care of our internal customers, they're not going to take care of our external customers. And so it's important that we market that and show that, hey, we are professional. We do show up. We make your house look amazing. We do things safely. We're not doing sketchy stuff. And, we're not up on a roof in shorts that we probably shouldn't be in, and, things like that. And so it's important that we market. But, Facebook groups are still doing well. Facebook ads, posting on Facebook. And if you're only posting once or twice a week, you're probably not going to get a lot out of Facebook. I seen one the other day and I've actually done a little test of what I've been doing here. And, I've been posting quite a bit, and I'm up almost 400,000 views in 1 month off of Facebook. So This is the importance of posting 8, 10, 15 times a day. And that kicks that algorithm, and then people start seeing you more and more. And that's the trick of how do you start growing this thing and showing up so people know who you are.
Is that part of your training too, with the social media postings and things like that? I know you do a lot of training with marketing. I didn't know how much on that social media front you do.
Yeah, so I actually do my 3-day class for Christmas lights, which is the first day is hands-on for Christmas lights. Day 2 is all social media, marketing, sales, everything, how to answer the phone. I go in really in depth in AI. I've learned a lot about AI and how it's changing everything. And so it is important. And that is one of my most important things. And I've actually got chat GPT prompts that I give people. So then that way they can be able to use it also for themselves. And it isn't just me sitting up there telling them what to do, but tools that they can go back and use in their own business.
Excellent. Awesome. What, Jason, you had mentioned $3,000, $5,000 ticket residential. Do you also get into the commercial end of stuff when you're training people?
Absolutely. Commercial is a great thing to get into. The big commercial is a little bit different, especially when you start getting into like the big trees of, the tower trees. And that's kind of a whole nother level. I don't get into a lot of that because you got to be able to, buy a $100,000 tree to be able to put up this $80,000 to $100,000 tree. So it's a little bit different of that side of it. So I don't get into a lot of like that of it, but just commercial of like HOAs, your dealerships, your dentist offices, all the little HOAs, your little malls that just putting up lights. Yeah, we can talk about that, how to do it, how to put them up, especially with permanent lights coming around. We talk a lot about permanent lights putting up on there because now we can do all the holidays. We can make it accent lighting. We can do all of those things at the end of the day.
Okay, awesome. So what's sort of the niche that you have is, where's your wheelhouse with? Is it somebody that hasn't started their business yet and you're trying to get them up and running? Is it somebody that's, trying to get their second season in and they're not sure? Where's your wheelhouse on how you are most passionate about helping that entrepreneur?
So I'm a little bit of both, right? I'm a little bit of coming in, starting it, but I'm also there for you in the growth mode too. How do we get you? I always tell people you can get to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 with you and maybe one or two helpers. And
Yep.
I've seen it over and over and over, and you can get there. But I also love helping people get to the $1 million, the 500 to $1 million, and you want to get there as fast as you can because that's a hard place. And I would even say it's up to about 1.2 million is where you want to be at before you're going to start seeing the profit that you were making as before. So it's important that we kind of jump over that. It's about 750 to about 1.2 million. We need to get past that as fast as we can because that's where we are having to hire managers to run certain things, and we're having to hire people that aren't necessarily making us money at the end of the day, but they're doing more management work and management style. And it is a tough area through that time. And so, yes, I do coach people through that. And I am passionate about that, but I'm also passionate about let's get you started. Let's get you off the truck. I always say the two hardest things that in a business is one, get off the truck, and two, start, go full time. Those are the two things that can get a little bit tricky when you're trying to grow this business.
Sure. There are those certain purgatories that you hit and I think, and it goes back to the thing you say so many times. I've heard you say, raise your price, raise your price, raise your price. You get that new guy or somebody that's been struggling maybe because they haven't gotten their systems in place. They haven't had your training and they're not quite sure they're not a bad person. They're not a bad business person. They're not a bad entrepreneur. They just don't know yet. And it's raise your price. And I think when we first start out in business, and I certainly was like this, 25 years ago with my cleaning business, and that was, I'm starting out. I know I don't know everything I need to know. And I'm kind of juking and weaving my way through it like most of us do, right? And we learn, hey, I think we can make money doing this. I'm just not sure how. And we price it out because we don't think we're as good as those guys that have been around for 5 years or 10 years. And I think that's one thing that I love when I hear you say, raise your prices. That takes so many different things. And why? What is it about us that we just have this problem with raising prices? We don't know what we're, and oftentimes we know what our competition's charging, and it is a lot more, and we still don't go there.
Well, it's back to the mindset,
Yep.
and it's back to that I would never pay that, right? We always think of well, I would never pay. I tell you right now, I would never pay $2,000 to someone put lights on my house, right? In the past, for sure. Maybe in the future someday, yes. But in the past, I would never pay $2,000. But we got people that do it all the time. But it's the difference in mindset of money at the end of the day. You know, some of the things that I always talk about is a poor mindset. First off, if you grew up poor, which that was me, we didn't have much money. I can show you my house I lived in. It was a little $20,000-$30,000 house. It was a shithole at the end of the day. And that's where I grew up at. And so that's my mindset of money. My parents never made over $100,000 a year combined,
Right.
you know, and that's kind of where what my thought of mine is. And then we can get into the religious mindset, right? Yes, I grew up in church all these years, and you know, you hear it all the time, those rich people are evil, and it's like, no, they're not. They're not. That's not what the Bible says. You're going out of one or two verses. Let's go into Proverbs, and let's go to King Solomon, and let's go to these people that God gave more wealth and knowledge to them than anybody else. And so let's go to those verses. Let's not just pull out one up for the love of money, because that's for the love of money is evil.
Right.
You know, we're always thinking it was money. So rich people are bad. You know, that kind of can come out of the religious mindset. So you got both of them. It really is a double whammy. And that's kind of where I was the one that came from. And so you don't know any different, right? You don't know that this person living in this $3, $4, $500,000 house, $500,000 house, whatever, maybe, and that's actually high in my area, but I know in some areas that's even low, right? $1 million house. Well, she just went and bought a $10,000 purse that she's going to use one or two times a year, but yet you're too scared to charge $2,000 for Christmas lights because you're selling bulbs that her memory of those kids and her grandkids coming over and seeing that smile on that face is worth $10,000 to her, because it's worth more than what that purse is worth. But yet we come in only believing it's only worth $500 because that's how much we paid bulbs, and we made a couple $100, and that's where we come from. And that's a different mindset when we got to start thinking. And a lot of it is you're afraid of hearing no. And every no that we get, we know that that's closer to a yes. And so we know that it's a numbers game at the end of the day. Hey, I tell people you're going to be 15 to 20% close rate. So the faster you get your no's, the faster we get our yeses. It just works out amazing that way. But in the end, it's our mindset. It's the way we believe. It believes that you don't believe that you are worth that much. You don't understand that you're worth that much, but in the end, you're worth so much more than that, right? You're worth so much more than that. And that's the thing that I try to drive into people is you can do this. You are awesome. You are an amazing person, right? Get out of the mindset of selling for money at the end of the day. You know, I actually had a call last night with some people, and I'm like, everybody's worried about price, and my average ticket's only $1,000, and every word it's back to the words they speak. And if you speak these to a customer when you're on the phone, it can be one word that you say triggers that price. And if you're thinking about price in your brain all the time, it's going to come out in the words we speak. But if you're talking about how beautiful this house is going to look and how amazing and what your kids' faces are, they're not thinking about price at that point. They're thinking about how awesome and amazing this is going to be. And price hasn't got nothing to do with it at the end of the day. So it's finding your right customers that you want to sell the emotion. And we already know they did a Harvard study that 90% of people buy on emotion, but yet we want to sell on the product and not the emotion. So we're screwing ourselves in the end.
Yeah. I could speak very directly to your ability to help people change that mindset. I was just at a maid service conference, not a Christmas light hanging conference. And this guy came up to me and we were talking and chatting, and he's talking about maid services, and I can't remember where he was from. Um, he was very enthusiastic, and then he started talking about Christmas lights at a maid service conference. There's like 260 people there or something crazy, and he says to me, and he had an accent of some sort, like a Hispanic accent, so I wasn't able to catch. And I'm crawling up closer to 60 years old, so combine that with my hearing, it's not a good result at the end of the equal sign there as far as how I'm understanding everything. But he said, this is Christmas lights. I've never been so excited about it. This is at a maid service conference. I've never been so excited. Jason Geiman. And I said, wait a minute, who? He goes, Jason Geiman. And we sat there and talked about you. And he's like, he told me I could do it. I know I can do it. I can't remember if he said you're coaching him now or not, but.
So you're talking about, I'm assuming you're probably talking about Rental. Is who you're talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And Reno was one that when he came, he actually joined my pressure washing mentorship or membership.
Okay.
And when he came in, he was charging $50 to $75 an hour on his maid service side. That's right now, he just said he was on the call the other night, and he's like, I'm over $200.
That's exactly what he told me.
Crews. Yep. He's like, I would have never been able to do that. And the thing that's cool about Rental is that when I actually was talking about social media marketing world last year in February, and I was telling the group about it, and he's like, I'll go to that, because he only lives about an hour or two away from San Diego, so he went to it. And he was one that his English isn't the best at the end of it, but he was there, and he showed up, and his eyes were like this big, like, I'm not supposed to be here. But at the end of it, he was so excited and learning. He had learned so much that he's taking action. And it's so cool to see that how he's went from $50 to $75 an hour for maid service, him and his wife, to now they have like 3 or 4 crews doing $200 an hour is what they're charging. And so it's so cool to see people like that they were barely getting by. They wasn't making a lot of money. And now they're making very good money, and they're growing and they're scaling. And he's like, I want to be at 10 crews. And, it's just neat to see people like that.
It is, and it all goes back to mindset and the conversations you've had with them. So when I talk about knowing Jason Geiman, and we know each other, and I know people that have gone to his events or training or just talked to him on the phone or whatever it is. I know people, like dozens of people, that he has taken from, hardship and not sleeping at night and having rough conversations with wives on how we're going to pay our bills, to doubling what you're charging people. I mean, it's outrageous, but it's true. So I just had to bring that up. I didn't know if you would know who that was necessarily or remember, but I'm glad I'm glad you did. I probably should have assumed you would have. Let's get into some other stuff here. We're coming up close to time, so I want to keep moving along. Super good story, man. I love it. Can you kind of take us through? What is it that, and this will play into my game of hiring a little bit too. What is it where we get stuck at the hiring problems? You had mentioned a couple. Nobody wants to work anymore. The one that came to mind when you start talking about the no's that you get, and you don't like to hear no when we're selling, is the no-shows. I had a client in a different industry that we hired, I think, 4 or 5 people for them, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in productive revenue. And the only thing we heard was the bitching about the no-shows. And I'm sitting here going, 5 minutes into this, I'm going, can I interject you? Why are we talking about no-shows again? Can we talk about the 5 people that are going to make you, $600,000 of revenue? I think we should talk about that a little bit. And even with some success, people have some trouble with that. What are things that you hear that are some of the problems with hiring? Let's start with the install stuff, and then we can move on to some other things from there.
So one is to get people to show up, but it's kind of like marketing, right? And I know you've said this, and that's probably where I've learned it from is just like marketing, you got to do it for looking for employees. You're looking for these employees everywhere that you can. And, even the way you call an employee, right? That's not, it's your team, it's your crew. And when you say an employee, the word you speak of that is actually kind of talking down to them at
Yeah.
that point. And so how you talk about that and what you look like. And so with Christmas lights, it is a little bit, it's what the message you put out there. If you put out there that we're just hiring anybody, then you're probably not going to get good candidates at the end. We need people that like to be outside and enjoy to be outside, and they don't want to be in an office. If they're an office type person, I don't want that person because they're going to be miserable. They got to like the cold. And some people don't like cold. And so what's in your ad that you're trying to promote to be able to get people? You got to be able to climb ladders. You can't be afraid of heights. These are all things we got to think about when we're trying to hire technicians in our team to be able to get us to where we want to be at. And so how we put that ad out there is very important. One of the things that I've seen a lot of people start doing, and it's a great idea when you're hiring them, yeah, you might do a phone call, but is the phone call going to make or break you? Probably not. This is what I've seen a lot of people start doing is hey, it's Saturday at 10 o'clock. We're going to go be at this house here, and we're going to climb up this ladder. We're going to teach you a little bit to see if you can follow instruction. We're going to climb up this 3-story ladder. Yes, you'll be in harness and everything. And you're going to find out who shows up. And the one that shows up that is afraid of heights, and he's sitting there shaking and won't get on the ladder, well, maybe that's not who we need to hire. But he might look great on paper. He says he's not afraid of ladders until you put that ladder in front of him and say, all right, now let's go up here and do this. This is what we have to do. And so it's important. And this also helps you if you just bring in everybody. Don't try to do it you're at 10 o'clock, you're at 10:15, because you're going to be there all day and you're going to only get 1 or 2 appointments. So you just bring them all at one time and you make it easy. And, marketing is one of the things that I've been pushing a lot is we like to make things really difficult. Like we love to make things as more difficult than you could ever think about at the end of the day. We love to complicate things.
Yes.
We love to make things where you got to jump through 57 hoops for our customers. And we do the same thing with our employee side. Hey, if you want a job, awesome. Fill out the application and show up this day. That's how easy it can be. Instead of being like, well, we need to have this interview and a phone interview. And you know what? Someone on the phone might sound amazing. Someone on the phone might sound terrible, but man, they can hang lights like no other. Would I rather have the person that can hang lights like no other, or the person that sounds amazing on the phone? They sound like they're the best thing since sliced bread, but they won't climb the ladder to save their life because they're scared, And so that's the importance of keeping things simple. We love to complicate things. We love to make things so much more complicated than it is. But in the end, how do we make it simple? How do we go from A to B and make it really, really simple?
I love that, Jason, big time. There's a lot to be said with that. You talked to, I watch Shark Tank every now and again. Everything simple, everything on large scales, on small business, everything. And I love everything you said there. I tell people, especially with the installers, speed is everything. Installers now with Indeed and all that, quick apply. All you have to do is literally hit a button and you've applied to 10 different places in 10 seconds. So
right.
What are you going to do? Let's do a phone interview. Then I need you to do an obstacle course. Then I need you to, recite Shakespeare because you have to be well-spoken and all that nonsense, right? It's like speed is everything. Get them in, have something. We have something online that 20 questions takes them 3 minutes. We know whether or not we want to interview, period, end of story. But to your point, I mean, if you want to have an interview with somebody, I understand that. But a phone interview to me, if you want somebody that's a good BSer and sounds good and can do a good phone interview, and that's what you're looking to hire, then hire that. That's fine. I'm not looking to hire that. I kind of like, it's more and more, I'm hearing more about like sort of like working interview is kind of what you're alluding to. I don't like the term working interview. I like to call it an evaluation. I like to call it, it's you evaluating if we're good enough for you and this job's good enough for you. You're saying the same thing as I want to make sure you're good too. But like you said, and treating an employee properly and saying the right things, even though we're trying to uncover the behaviors and all that. What do you think about that?
I think it's some words back to the words the evaluate. We're going to evaluate this to see if we are a good fit. Right now, we've just changed it from a working interview, which that's what it is, but an evaluation. Hey, we're going to see if I like you, and you're going to see if you like me, if you like doing this, because you may not like this at the end of the day. So I think that's a great way to put that.
Yep. What do you recommend for like, how do you figure out pay? We're talking about the employee thing, so we need to kind of talk about the retention of employees. Pay is one thing, and then you've got some, seasonality typically doesn't have a 401k and healthcare benefits and all that sort of thing. Tell me about that, the compensation stuff.
So with Christmas lights, it's a little bit. So I personally like the way of paying by performance, basically, or by how, paid by the foot. So then that way, if they're slow, then that's on their pay. But if you find a person that can put up, 1,000 feet a day, which people can, they're, and you're paying them 80 cents to $1 a foot, they're making $1,000 a day with him and a crew person that they can split together. And, that's pretty good money at the end of the day. And so one thing I like about that too, especially with the Christmas lights, is then I know my cost, because if I pay per hour, they're going to just stand there and they're not going to do a lot. And, they're like, I'm getting paid by the hour. It doesn't matter if I do $2,000 or if I do $10,000 worth of Christmas lights, And so that's the one thing that I like about pay by performance is, you can pay by the percentage of the whole job, but I know a lot of people that pay, hey, you get, $1 a foot and you get 25 cents a takedown when we go to takedown. And so then that way it makes them want to work faster because they can make a lot more money in the end that way.
Yeah. And I think that's a win-win for the business and the employee too, where the hourly is, there's just an incentive not to work fast. And that doesn't help the business. Definitely agree with that wholeheartedly with the production pay. What about commercial? Does that production pay work the same in commercial, or is that a little bit different? Or no? I'm curious.
A lot of times it's about the same because you're putting up light bulbs, unless you start getting into the side of like the large Christmas trees and all of that kind of stuff, then that's going to get different. But if you're just putting lights on trees and mini lights and C9s on bulbs and on buildings, then a lot of times your commercial, you're just going to make more money because they can put, you can walk along the top of it and put them right in and be done with it.
Are there any, I know like pressure washing and things like that have upsells. Maybe we do window cleaning too. We do gutter cleaning too. We do, this, that, and the other. Are there really any upsells in the Christmas light game?
So you can do upsells, but typically what I always tell people is a technician is a technician. He's not really a sales guy at the end of the day, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that all technicians are not salespeople, but majority of your technicians don't want to sell at the end of the day. And, once you start getting busy and like you getting $10,000 days per crew, the last thing he wants to do is try to add more lights to the back of the house or something else because then my schedule gets screwed up later on. Right. Now my last customer's pissed off because I'm not able to make it there because I made an extra $500 that took me an extra hour, that now my $2,000 customer at the end of the day is not happy. So, if you're kind of just starting out and you're kind of small and you don't have a lot of work, that's one thing. But when you're growing and scaling, you should have employees. At this point, you should be able to keep that employee pretty much busy all day long.
Yep. We talked about installers. Are you somebody that has some training for some sales stuff too, as far as whether it's the owner or a hired salesperson?
So the way my training is, and a lot of people are like, well, that's for brand new people. And this is what I would tell you. So my first day is all about how to install, how to do it safely. You don't hit power lines
Yeah.
and die that way. You don't do that. This here is what I tell. I have people come to my class 2 or 3 times over the years, and every year they learn more, right? Because when you first come, you're all focused on how do I install these lights? How do I do the bulbs? And you're not really worried about day 2 or any of that. But if you're coming back and you are experienced, then what I would tell you is how can I help you with your systems? How can we help you install faster? When you go through training today, I want you to look at it as a different lens. I want you to look at how can I put this into a system so that it happens every time and I'm going to be fast. Because a lot of times what happens is you forget to put your vest on, or you put your vest on and you didn't go through your checklist to make sure you had everything in your vest. And then you get up to the roof, and then now you don't have no females. And so now you're hollering down at your helper, and he's like, walking back to the truck to get you some females and coming back. And now I dropped my cutters, and he's still doing, and you got to do that, right? And so it's all about systems. And then day 2 is all about marketing and sales. And like I say, when you go from hearing it the first time to the second time, I actually had a kid come in the spring, and he came in the fall, and he's like, I didn't think I was going to learn any more. And he's like, I learned so much more the second time on this here, because I was focused over here when I came the first time. And so that's the ticket to it is how can we learn more about sales? What do we need to do? We do role playing. Well, you should be doing role playing with your employees every week. And if you're not, you're losing out on what are they saying? Do you know what they're saying? Are they going through the steps, asking and showing them, hey, here's how the timer works. Here's what this happens. If something happens, all you have to do is turn this off. If you have any issues, call us. Hey, is there any, when you first start up there, our goal is to make you so happy that you want to give us a 5-star review and tell all your friends. At the end of it, hey, is there any reason why you wouldn't give me a 5-star review? Awesome. Yes, awesome. Here's this tap card here. Why don't you go ahead and put your phone up to it so that way we can get this 5-star review? And if you don't do that, and because what'll happen is they're going to put their phone up to it, and it's going to say you need to log in, and they're going to be like, well, I don't know my login. Well, awesome. Would you give me a video review? Video review would be much better anyway. And I'm going to ask you these 3 simple questions, and would you give me a video review? And so if you don't walk through this and role play this with your employees, you're going to wonder why I ain't got no 5-star reviews. And you wonder why you're not getting your phone to ring. It's because you're not getting 5-star reviews because you haven't done your marketing, because you haven't done your role playing with your customers. And when you do your role playing, especially if you got more people, then you can see what's working with each other and what can be better. Hey, this guy over here might be doing it this way, and he's crushing it on getting reviews. What are you saying to your customers to get so many reviews? And I've seen it. Like, I just came back from Pink Pro Wash to do a job up there with them. And the one guy that you would never think gets more 5-star reviews than anybody else. He's kind of the quiet guy, but he gets more 5-star reviews with his name in it over and over and over and over again. And so, hey, what are you doing to get so many 5-star reviews so we can help each other at the end of this?
Yeah, awesome. So we're coming up on the hour. Tell us, do you have any training? Is your training already over with? Because the season's we're already here. I mean, it's happening right now. Or do you have anything coming up or anything online or in person? What?
So it's never too late to start a Christmas light business. So I hear this all the time. Well, I can't start a Christmas light business because it's already September. Well, let me tell you something. I've had people. Jeremy Main is the one that's the garbage man that did. He came to one. It was the very end of October, right? It was the last weekend of October. I said you'd do 30 to 50,000. He told me I was crazy. He went home that year and did 35,000. I had a guy on November 12th. He came here, Jason Murphy out of Louisville. and he did 30,000 his first year, and that only from November 12th on. Now he does 750 on $1 million in Christmas lights alone. So it's not too late. I actually have a class coming up this weekend here in Cincinnati. It's actually Northern Kentucky. It's only about 10 minutes from the airport. And then I got another class coming up in October here in Cincinnati. And then I'm also got one more class in Houston, Texas. I'm doing a class with Ron Roby in Houston, Texas. So if you want to go check it out, it's christmaslights.io, which is sliding across there /IPT for in-person training. And it'll take you to the 3 dates that I have there.
Okay, awesome. That's it, man. If you're somebody that's either not where you want to be in the Christmas light game, or you're somebody that's thought about starting it or whatnot, Jason's the man. You know, we just rattled off a bunch of people we both have either helped or know, and so on. Check it out. Get there now. Don't waste time. If you're thinking about it, click buttons now. Get to his website. Sign up. And, you know, I don't usually do a lot of selling on my podcast and stuff like that, but this is a no-brainer, man. I mean, it really is. And Jason, buddy, thanks for getting the time to get on the show and stuff. Good to see you again, man.
I'm excited to be on here, and it's fun to get people hired and get them going, right?
You're damn right it is. We're slamming with Christmas light stuff right now. I got one at 7:30 tonight. I'm doing a demo because I didn't have enough time today and yesterday, and so we're doing it night and day, man, here at Higher Lead Chill. If you're out there and you're looking for some seasonal help, we've got all kinds of really unique, strategic ways to attract those really good people. We've got a whole system we can make it happen. We just got an email. I was telling Jason, I don't know if if we were talking about it on the show or not, but just got an email where somebody, Christmas lights, was waiting, reached out to us, and they had a job fair they wanted to get some stuff set up for. We helped them with everything. Long story short, they ended up with 5 or 6 people that they interviewed in less than a week from going live with us. Hired one rock star. They're thinking about the other 3 solid people they said that they would hire. They've got more interviewing to do. So we know the seasonality. We know how difficult it can be to find somebody to work for 4 months out of the year, whatever your season is. I've been doing it now for a lot of years, and reach out to me, reach out to Jason. We'll help in any way we can. Love you guys. God bless. Be good out there.